You need help with the wide receiver position? I've got you covered. Let's talk about some of my favorite buy low wide receivers heading into week 6. Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Chris, and I'm going to bring you some of my top buy low wide receivers heading into week 6 that can help your fantasy team, not just right now, but down the stretch and in the fantasy playoffs. All right, let's start with the guy. I know everybody's the big name here, Jamar Chase. What is going on with Jamar Chase? Well, you know what's going on with Jamar Chase? Jamar Chase is what's going on with Jamar Chase, because this is just who Jamar Chase is. This is who Jamar Chase was last year. And people didn't realize it because all they saw were those huge spike weeks and that huge game in week 17 that helped them win fantasy championships. But look at Jamar Chase last year. 7 times he scored 19 or more PPR points. In all other games, that's 10 games by the way, in all other games, he scored under 14 points. Not 14 or less, under 14. What have we seen this year? Week 1 had that big spike week. I think it was like 27 fantasy points. And then he's had like 10 and 12 in every other game. That's exactly what he did last year. It's no different this year. It's just he's going through kind of that stage he went through in the middle of the season last year where he wasn't scoring a bunch of points. If you remember last year, hot start, huge spike weeks. Then through the middle part of the season, terrible games like 13 or less. And then, of course, he spiked again at the very end. He's just going through one of those stages right now. And this Bengals offense also going through a stage like that right now. They just don't look like a very explosive offense like we saw last year. But just like last year, it can turn around. And I think it will turn around. They still have Joe Burrow. They still have T. Higgins when he's healthy. They've got Mixon. They've got weapons. This offense will get better and Chase will get better. But here's the great thing about going to get Chase right now. He's not being valued as a top 6 pick anymore. In fact, he might not even be valued as a top 10 wide receiver at the moment. People are extremely low on Jamar Chase right now. So you can go out and get Jamar Chase and it's not going to cost you the value it would have cost you in the beginning of the season where you had to give up, your first round pick or your second round pick. You can get him at far less than his true value right now, and he always has that huge week winning upside. And if he gets better, if things get better in this offense, which I think they will, he could definitely be one of the best buy lows of the entire season. All right, another kind of boom bust wide receiver is A.J. Brown. And look, when he first got traded to Philadelphia, I was a little nervous. I said, okay, this is an offense that just wants to run the ball. They don't throw a lot. They have Devonta Smith. I'm not sure they can support A.J. Brown as, a top 10 wide receiver. But this offense has been incredible. Jalen Hurts has absolutely made the leap. He looks great throwing the ball. His pocket presence is incredible. There's nothing you can dislike about this Eagles offense right now. This is just who A.J. Brown is. Kind of like Jamar Chase. He's not a guy who's just going to give you that rock solid, super high floor with the super high ceiling. He's not Cooper Kupp. He's A.J. Brown. But when he goes off, he really goes off. And this is still a great wide receiver in a great situation, in a great offense. He will still be very, very good. But people are getting nervous because we've now seen Devonta Smith have 3 really big games. Devonta Smith badly out-targeted him here in week 5. And people are getting nervous like maybe this offense can't support A.J. Brown as a top 10 wide receiver. I think it can. And I think now is the time to go cash in those chips and hedge your bet and say, I think it can as well, and go trade for A.J. Brown because he's not going to require, that kind of level of return to get him right now because his value is so down. So go get A.J. Brown. He'll be fine. He'll be great. This offense is going to be great. This team is, it's already great, and this team is already great. So go get a piece of it with A.J. Brown. All right, now this guy might be in full-fledged panic mode for teams, and that is Jalen Waddle. Had a nice week 1. Obviously, that huge week 2 when Tua just went off. Saved his day in week 3 with like a yard after catch touchdown. But then what have we seen in the last 2 weeks? Pretty much nothing. And people are freaking out about Jalen Waddle right now. And now there's a chance they don't have Tua or Teddy B going into week 6. And Skylar Thompson is going to be the quarterback. And that is just going to lower his value even more. Look, I never believed that Jalen Waddle was going to be this incredible, top 15 wide receiver because they got Tyreek Hill and they're not going to be an offense that throws the ball 40 plus times unless they absolutely have to. But Jalen Waddle will still be a solid high upside wide receiver 2 week in and week out, and people are not valuing him that way right now. His value is way, way lower than that. This is a guy you can get relatively cheap to where he should be valued. So go out and trade for him right now. You don't want to wait. And if Tua comes back this week or Teddy B comes back this week and he goes off, that window is closed. You have to strike right now. Maybe it's Skylar Thompson again this week, and maybe Waddle struggles, but it's okay, because when Tua comes back or Teddy comes back, or either, he'll be great, he'll be good again, and you'll be glad you got him. And then let's talk about a couple of wide receivers from that Thursday night game. Let's start on the Colts side, and let's start with Michael Pittman, another guy whose value is really, really low. Had a great first 2 games, obviously missed week 2, had a huge week 1, a very good week 3, I guess, because you missed week 2, and now 2 down games. But he's coming off a tough matchup against a tough secondary. And not only that, Alec Pierce was the leading receiver in this game. And people are seeing that and they're freaking out. They're thinking Alec Pierce is the wide receiver 1 here. Pump the brakes a little bit. Darby, the Broncos' number 2 corner, left that game, now out for the season, we learned. And Alec Pierce got to go against their 3rd string backup corner in the second half, and that's when he started doing all his damage. Of course, he's going against a corner who has no experience and really wouldn't be on the field without injuries or in, like certain packages. So, of course, he's going to have a good game. Michael Pittman had to deal with Patrick Surtain a lot of the game. They played a lot of, zone against Michael Pittman and blanketed Michael Pittman. It was a tough matchup, but there's still reasons to be encouraged. Number 1, he had a couple catches where I thought Matt Ryan put the ball right where it needed to be, and the defenders just made a great play breaking it up. If he makes those catches, we're talking about a 15, 16-point game, and nobody is worried right now. Number 2, Matt Ryan still looks very accurate when he has time to throw the ball. Now, unfortunately, this offensive line, for whatever reason, is awful this year. Their tackles are terrible. Their left tackle gave up 9 pressures in 1 game. So that may limit Pittman's upside. He may not be a top 5, top 10 wide receiver this year, but he's still going to be a high upside every week wide receiver 2 that you have to have in your lineup. And if this offensive line figures it out and gets better and gives Matt Ryan more time to throw, Pittman will be that top 10 wide receiver that I and a lot of people thought he would be. But right now people are freaking out. They see this offense, they see Matt Ryan, and they think run away as fast as they can. So go get Michael Pittman at an extreme value right now. Now on the other side, we have Courtland Sutton. And now his value is still relatively high because he had a nice start to the season, and then he had 1 down game. The reason why he's a buy low right now, though, is not because of Courtland Sutton. It's because of Russell Wilson, who looks worse than Matt Ryan somehow, and now is dealing with a partially torn lat on his throwing side. And he's going to try to play through it. And people are freaking out about this whole offense. They're thinking Russell Wilson can't support these wide receivers, but he can, because he did. Because Courtland Sutton was a wide receiver 11 in PPR leagues prior to that week 5 game. Russell Wilson can still support Sutton, especially Sutton. Now, I'm worried about Judy, but I'm not worried about Sutton because Sutton, A, is by far the number 1 target on this offense. He's clearly Russ's number 1 guy. And B, he catches the ball down the field. And we know Russ loves to chuck it down the field. Now, granted, he's not as accurate as he used to be, but they're still going to hit on 1 or 2 of those plays every single week, plus the other catches, plus hopefully when they get near the goal line. So no, Sutton not going to be some league-winning wide receiver this year, probably, unless Russ starts cooking. But he's still, like Pittman, he's going to be a solid every week wide receiver 2 with upside. Coming off a bad game with this Russ injury, now is a time to go see if you can get Courtland Sutton before it gets better. And then how about a couple of forgotten wide receivers? And let's start with Keenan Allen. Is he ever going to play again? Who knows? But yes, he's going to play again at some point. Obviously been dealing with this hamstring injury since the first quarter of week 1. That doesn't seem to be getting any better, but here's the thing. It's going to eventually get better, and Keenan Allen will eventually be on the field. Now, Keenan Allen is past his prime. We saw it last year. We saw him start to slip off, start to fall off, but he's still a guy who's going to be a high volume, high target guy, a great guy to have in PPR leagues if he's your wide receiver 2 or even your wide receiver 3, which would be better. And he's just been sitting on somebody's bench or in somebody's IR spot, not scoring points. And people are wondering if this guy's even going to get back on the field. And is he just complete dust? Is he just done? Is his career over? Go try to get Keenan Allen right now. It's not going to require much at all to get Keenan Allen. No one's going to be asking for the world if you want Keenan Allen. So if you're looking for an every week startable wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, potentially down the road, maybe he's back in week 6, maybe he's not. Now is the time to get Keenan Allen. It's still a great offense. Justin Herbert is still a great quarterback. They need Keenan Allen because Josh Palmer is not the answer. So go trade for Keenan Allen right now. And then finally, I talked about him last week. Talk about him again. That's DeAndre Hopkins. It's week 6. This is it. His suspension is up after this week. If the team in your league holding DeAndre Hopkins needs a win this week and they need to score fantasy points, and you're okay, maybe you're sitting at, 5-0, 4-1, maybe even 3-2, and you're just looking for some wide receiver help, go see if you can get DeAndre Hopkins extremely cheap. Give the player in your league that has Hopkins a player they can start this week that you do not need this week, and say, hey, look, this guy can help you score points this week and get you that win that you badly need. DeAndre Hopkins can't. And I promise you a lot of teams will make that deal. Even if it's not quote unquote a fair trade, if it's close enough and that player can be in their lineup this week helping them win, they will take that deal. So this is the last week. This is the last buy low week for DeAndre Hopkins, because next week he's on the field and nobody's going to trade DeAndre Hopkins. Nobody held DeAndre Hopkins for 6 weeks just to trade him when he finally comes back. This is your last chance. Go see if you can get DeAndre Hopkins. All right, now that you know some of my buy low wide receivers, you need to know some of my buy low running backs, who to start, who to sit, who's going to boom. We've got you covered. Everything you need to win your week 6 matchup. Check out this playlist right here.